Hello and a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on this week's show, tough talk on Turkey continues. Despite calls by the EU to stop an influx of migrants into Europe, the tide is yet to dry up. Living in the shadow of a dangerous dam, the Iraqi town of Wana could be wiped out within minutes if the country's largest dam bursts. And with love from Tehran, Iranian blogger and fashion designer Araz Fazaeli presents his Persian carpet-inspired couture line in the French capital. Well, we'll start this edition with Turkey, which has given shelter to almost 3 million refugees since the Syrian war started. That's more than any other nation. In a bid to crack down on those attempting to reach Europe from Turkey, the EU has given Ankara some €3 billion and is working with the country's authorities to finalise a deal. Mark Thompson has the story.
The lights of mainland Europe twinkle across the bay. Just the start of a long night for those on board this boat.
Look, it's stuck.
A new motor soon arrives. Tonight, the waters are calm and they must move quickly. Around 40 people are on board. Many have already travelled for days to reach western Turkey, among them women and children. All hoping the cover of darkness will be enough to secure their safe passage. The boat's operators get the new motor working and they head out to the open water.
We work day and night to prepare everything, the boats, the motors. But tonight it's simple. The authorities are quiet.
Just a few kilometres away, the Turkish police are on patrol. They say they haven't seen anyone.
No, there are not refugees here.
Turkish officials say they're doing everything in their power to stem the tide of migrants heading to Europe. Hundreds arrive at this bus station in Izmir every day. Among the new arrivals, Abdulkader and his family. The engineer fled from Syria 3 days ago.
She must be in the school. She must be, no, not here, not in the boat, not here, but what can I do? In the school, there is no school. Everything has been destroyed. Schools, homes. No. Excuse me, Mom.
If Abdulkader can't find work in Turkey, he says he too is thinking about taking a boat to mainland Europe. To get across, migrants must first come here to the centre of town where the traffickers are based, and it's a lucrative business. One agrees to meet with us down this small side street. He's been running boats for 4 years.
When I have 40 people on a boat, I get 10,000 euros. Our service is the most reliable. We even take the elderly. It doesn't matter if they're Kurds or Arabs, and we don't overload the boats.
The local economy is set up to cater for refugees and migrants. From hotels to life jackets, they can find almost everything they need. Around 60,000 are thought to be living in the city. Tonight, dozens will attempt to make it across the harbour in search of a new life and a new start.
Also in Turkey, a continued crackdown on media freedom, which is prompting international alarm. Earlier this month, amid clouds of tear gas and a volley of rubber bullets, Turkish authorities stormed the headquarters of Zaman, a daily opposition newspaper linked to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's top rival, US-based cleric Fethullah Gulen. Meanwhile, rights groups are accusing the European Union of keeping mute about Erdogan's trampling of the free press. Now to the shocking spread of the Islamic State group. According to British think tank Quilliam, the militants are recruiting children and indoctrinating and training them for jihad. They've been dubbed the children of the caliphate, and now there are reportedly some 31,000 pregnant women being used to create the next generation of Sunni fighters. Here's Phoebe Lanza-Wood.
They're the new generation of fighters, an army of baby soldiers preparing for battle. The Islamic State group is training child killers on an unprecedented scale, according to a new report by British think tank Quilliam.
What we found is a systematic religious and educational indoctrination involves not just children. The families are part of this too. Society is part of it. And it's a systematic creation of the next generation of fighters that the group really sees as more pure and as more lethal than themselves.
Over the past 6 months, Quilliam documented more than 250 instances of children being used in Islamic State propaganda and investigated the way they're being indoctrinated and trained to wage jihad. Their education includes participating in or being exposed and desensitized to violence. Also on the curriculum, the ideology behind building a state and a utopia and the rhetoric of foreign policy as a root of extremism. Girls and boys do not receive the same education.
From the teachings and the curriculum that we found, girls are taught that their roles are very different. They're taught mainly to grow up and be mothers and be good wives and impart knowledge to the next generation. The roles that women are to play are mainly as teachers or as doctors, and so the curriculum they're taught is very different from that of boys and often features a lot less violence as well.
There are currently 31,000 women due to give birth to the next generation of Islamic State babies. But there are also vast numbers of children being recruited from overseas. At least 50 of them have come from the United Kingdom. Quilliam has recommended the creation of a commission to help monitor those at risk of radicalisation and protect future generations, saying that life under the Islamic State is one of the gravest situations for children on earth.
Iraqis face yet another threat on their doorstep. This time it's the country's largest dam, which could collapse at any moment. And if it does, it would wipe out an entire town northeast of Mosul and beyond. But for many in Wana, with its 10,000-strong population, life goes on.
The town of Wana, 10 kilometers downstream from Iraq's Mosul Dam. The first on the path of a possible doomsday wave. The United States recently warned that the dam, which was briefly under the control of the Islamic State jihadist group, risks bursting from internal erosion. A major failure would unleash millions of cubic meters of water, and Wana would be swept away by the wave. Yet the town's mayor says there's no cause for concern.
There haven't been any effects on citizens and things are normal. There's no evacuation plan or anything like that at all.
At a national level, the Iraqi Prime Minister says he's taking U.S. warnings seriously. But some Wana residents trust local authorities who have chosen to downplay them.
Iraqi specialists are saying there's nothing wrong, so no one is afraid of the dam. It's just media hype.
Others are more skeptical. The U.S. Embassy recently released a breach scenario estimating that 500,000 to almost 1.5 million Iraqis living in the most exposed areas would not survive the wave.
The dam has been a source of good for all Iraqi people, but now they're saying it might collapse, so people are scared, and they're considering moving to the nearby Kurdistan region.
In February, the Iraqi government signed a contract with Italian company Trevi for repair work. But officials in charge of the dam, now under the control of Iraq's Kurdish Peshmerga group, say plans have yet to be sketched out.
The Italian company has to fix the broken gate, but we still don't have specific details as to how it will be done exactly.
The singular threat might also complicate the government's plan to retake nearby second city Mosul, which has been the Islamic State group's main stronghold in Iraq since 2014. In the meantime, life goes on as usual for Wana's 10,000 residents, despite the looming threat that the country's largest dam might suddenly break.
Now, on a lighter note, let's move on to Paris, home to creme de la creme of fashion designers. Among them, and certainly trying to follow in their footsteps, young Iranian fashionista Araz Fazaeli, who started out as his country's first fashion blogger. With his blog Tehran Times, he tried to break the stereotypes of women's clothing in Islamic countries. Today, he's breaking a different mold. In his latest couture line, Araz is using traditional materials like Persian carpets, but with a modern twist. And he joins us here in the studio. Araz, thank you very much for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we see your collection here, and we can tell that it's very much inspired by your country, Iran. How do you make your clothes more appealing to the Western eye?
Well, I honestly feel very lucky that I was born in Iran. So I was able to witness all the colorful and the poetic culture behind that country, and later on to move to France to be able to study fashion here. Because I think the French are best at presentation. Don't forget that when Selfridges was built in the beginning, they used to bring people from Galerie Lafayette to do the windows. So you learn presentation from the French. You grab all those colorful images from Iran and you combine them together, and this is the result. I think a fashion designer or any designer is basically a translator. So you translate your own culture with the technique you learn from other cultures, so you send the message easier to different audience. So that's it.
And why did you choose Iran specifically as your inspiration?
Because I think we've seen from many different cultures in the fashion world. We've seen kimonos, we've seen saris, and I think there are some regions that in a way they're left out. So Iran is one of them. There is so much to see, so much to discover. And as an Iranian, I can be the translator. I can do it, I think, not better, but I can do it easier. So it's more interesting for me to discover my own culture in the fashion scene.
Do you think you could have had this level of success if you were actually working in Iran, or would you have had some restrictions?
Well, I think commercially, yes. Commercially, I could, because I'm quite known in the fashion scene of Tehran. But then I think it would be difficult to work with some of the women there, because I think they wouldn't feel comfortable to deal with a male designer. And as it's the beginning of my career, I would like to do the fitting myself, you know, be involved. So it wouldn't be too comfortable. So that would be the answer.
Well, and lastly and quickly, how can we make Iran's fashion scene more visible?
Well, I believe everything could get really visible and bright if you put your heart into it and you actually work for it. And this is what's happening in Iran. The Iranian designers are putting a lot of effort. They're really interested to develop the Iranian fashion scene and industry. And then the other would be journalists and important people from all over the world to pay attention to this beautiful historical corner that could be magnificent in terms of fashion, but it has been really quiet.
Okay, on that note, we'll end this edition of Middle East Matters. Araz, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Middle East Matters.